Welcome to the latest edition of Until Saturday, Sunday Sound-Off edition, Jets paying your boy off edition, 7-1 in game. I'm in Las Vegas right now. I left the casino to come be with my two best friends in the entire world, Dave Ubben, Nicole Auerbach. I'm Ari Wasserman here. This is my favorite show of the week, guys. I love it.
Yeah.
I love that we get to watch all the games on Saturday. I love that we get to return on Sunday 24 hours later when the dust settles to contextualize more things. And my favorite thing is having a very knowledgeable, very insightful guest to come in and maybe give us some thoughts that we missed on Saturday night, Dave. So, Nicole, before we get into the show, before we get into the glorious voicemails, before we get into the fan opinions, I wanted to give you the floor if you had a takeaway or a thought or anything that stood in your mind through the past 24 hours from the latest college football Saturday that we had.
Oh, well, first of all, I would like to congratulate you, Ari. I know that this is a big moment for you. You're very happy, very proud of yourself about this live in-game bet. So just wanted to take a moment there to start there and celebrate that. You are now texting me all caps, the Jets, exclamation points. So great to have you on board. I'll tell my dad that you are a Jets fan now. So I was in South Bend for USC Notre Dame, which that game, the outcome was the way that I thought it was going to go, but not the way that the game was played. You know, you guys were talking about this on your Saturday recap show, but I think we all thought that it would be the USC defense that would eventually cost them a game, not the USC offense. So that was pretty stunning. And I do think that between what Arizona did to limit Caleb Williams and then what Notre Dame did, we'll probably see a lot more teams have some ideas of what to do to limit that explosive offense. But I mean, the main takeaway was out west. Washington, Oregon absolutely lived up to the billing. That was incredible. It was such a great game because I think these are two teams that a lot of us have been really high on both of them. And we hadn't, like for Washington, you see them just absolutely crush who they're playing, mostly everyone that they're playing. But it's just it's like, okay, well, the Michigan State game should have been a better challenge. It should have been something we learned something about them, but you don't. And this game, the fact that both teams did all the things that we thought they were going to do, right? That Washington could score on 2 plays and just absolutely light it up. And that Oregon was a more balanced offense, but both defenses did have a couple moments with individual stops. But ultimately, the way that game went at the end and all the debates and the fourth down decisions, it was just as compelling as I hoped it would be. And I think that I came out of that thinking that these are two top 5 teams. These are both national title contenders. And I really hope that we get a rematch in Las Vegas. So I was thrilled with that. Michael Penix Jr. has been someone that I think was the Heisman frontrunner even before the game. I think coming out of it definitely is. And, I think Caleb Williams, his Heisman stock took a big hit. And so I think you're still going to have multiple quarterbacks from the West Coast, I think, get to New York and be finalists for the Heisman Trophy. But this is pretty early in the season to feel like there is a very clear favorite for it. So that was interesting as well. And then just otherwise, I mean, things that jumped out to me was, that 1 week that we spent talking about how there could be 3 undefeated teams in the ACC, all the tie-breaking procedures. That was a great week. Yeah, it was a really good 6 days. We got 6 days of talk about that. So that was gone. And Pitt actually does seem to be very different with a new quarterback. So that's positive. I feel like you guys talk about this stuff a lot where teams luck into the kind of the wrong quarterback, or sorry, they luck into making the correct quarterback decision that they should have been doing all year. And Virginia Tech is another example of that. And so it's always interesting when that sort of pops up. But yeah, I mean, it was a great weekend because Washington, Oregon lived up to it. And that rivalry has never had a top 10 showdown. It looked picture perfect. As someone who was in somewhere where the elements were an issue and the weather was bad, it was beautiful to watch on television. And again, I came out of that very similarly to the way I came out of Texas OU, although that game was wilder and much sloppier, thinking that they're both really good teams. It validated my feelings, I think, about both of these teams. And certainly Washington, because I wasn't sure their defense would have been able to do enough to win that game, and it did.
I think that is all. I agree with everything you just said. And I wanted to pull this up. I know this is premium content, but this is the Athletic Show, and I wanted to give you kudos for something. You ranked Washington your number one team in your top 10 on Saturday night.
Yep.
I think I saw somewhere on Twitter through the haze of the Las Vegas Strip on Sunday morning that they are still not in the top 3 in the AP poll. And I don't know how people vote. I don't know the procedures that everybody goes through. I know as a former AP voter myself, you might not put as much time into it as people may think, especially if you cover a team and you don't watch all the games on Saturday. But is it asinine to not have Washington number 1 on your ballot?
Oh, well, I think I thought that they would be number 3 in the AP poll. And I was going to be disappointed and prepared to rant about that because I thought that these are voters who just refused to take Georgia and Michigan out of those 2 top spots because they haven't lost. And what's going to happen here is like the CFP will come out with their first rankings and they'll say, hey, look, all of these other teams had these marquee wins, these huge opportunities, top 10 wins, and they will put those teams possibly ahead of Georgia and Michigan. And then the AP voters will copy it and then they'll start changing it. But I can't believe that Ohio State is ranked ahead of Washington. Those 2 teams play. What's the line on that game, Ari?
I don't know the answer to that question. I think that the line scenario with that one is tough.
I agree, but I think we know who's favored, right?
Yeah, I think that if Washington weren't favored, I would hammer Washington with points. So I think I get your point on that. Yeah.
So, like, to me, that's kind of crazy, and that's also not adjusting for Notre Dame, the way that they lost to Louisville, like all of the other factors that are there. So I was shocked. So Washington not only is not in the top 3, they're number 5 in the AP poll. 5. Crazy to me. And only 2 people voted for them number 1. Like, this is arguably the best win anyone has in the country. And I don't understand how only 2 people voted for them to be the number 1 team in the country. I don't know if it's a lack of respect for the teams out west, or maybe people weren't paying attention to them. I understand that Oregon didn't really have any, big wins on their resume. But like, you can't watch that game and come away not thinking that these are both there are not many teams better than these 2 teams. So that was shocking to me. And I feel like this
really
is
into Kentucky.
I agree with Ari, and I'm sure, we all know what it's like to cover a game, and it's really hard to catch up with everything else that's happening. But like, there have been massive, massive games each week, like a lot more than usual, right? We've had, like, just the way it's fallen, we've had a lot of like top 10, top 15 games. So how do you not then weigh those more than just everything else in the scoreboard check and the box scores that you normally would do, or penalize Georgia and Michigan?
The lazy thing would be to rank Washington 1. But I also think it's the easiest thing. The thing that my take on big games, guys, and Dave, I want to ask you this, but my take on, as you get further into the season, the games between the undefeated teams become bigger, because the more you win, the more you advance, the more adversity that you have fought through as a team, the better that you are. I don't care who you're playing. If you're 2 5-0, 6-0 teams, that is a more influential game in my mind than 2 teams that are 2-0, regardless of what the rankings are. So for me, I know it was at home, but Washington has, as things stand right now, the best win in college football this year.
That's what I think.
Now, you might think that Alabama, or the win over Alabama for Texas, since it was on the road, Dave, is there a game that you think is a bigger win, that off the top of your head?
No, that might be because I'm an Oregon believer. Maybe
I am too.
I think we'll see what Alabama is by season's end. I think that you could make the case for Texas at Alabama, in part because it's on the road, and in part because maybe you're buying more of the Alabama stock. But I would say Washington has the best win. Yeah.
So I think we're gonna get to see this too. Like, listen, we learned a lot about the Pac-12 last night. I do think that there is some danger when you look at the notion that there's a chance that these teams will all lose to each other. I think that there's a higher probability of that happening this year in the past, because the basement of this conference is so much higher than it's been in the past. I mean, going into Oregon State and playing them is not an easy game. Going to Utah and playing them is not an easy game. All of a sudden, Arizona's blowing out a top 20 team on the road, 44-6. Like, there aren't any truly awful teams, maybe outside of Stanford, and they just erased a 29-0 lead on the road against Colorado. So losses, I think, are going to pile up in weird places this year. But I think that as we are one of the most compelling, if not the most compelling storyline of this season has been how's the Pac-12 going to shake out. And I think that I'm so happy we got the game that we got in our first quest to answer that question on Saturday.
Same. And I want to answer some of the questions that we're getting in the comments because, listen, we got a bunch of people saying, what about Oklahoma and the win over Texas? I said a week ago that was the best win in the country. I had Oklahoma as number 1. People need to be rewarded for these types of games and these types of wins. And you know what? They can change over the course of the season, and it's fine, and you adjust. These are week-to-week rankings. And I said, it was actually funny. So I filed the top 10. I put Washington number 1. And my editor, Eric, he's like, listen, you keep saying like this is the best win anyone has. You said that last week about, Oklahoma over Texas. And I was like, yeah, because today, that point, that was the best win that anybody had. And now the new best win that anybody has is Washington's win over Oregon. But I still have Oklahoma at number 2. Because again,
I was just going to say,
these are great wins. And if you do the transitive property of Alabama's playing better, so therefore Texas's win over Alabama is better, then Oklahoma's win over Texas is even better.
Here's the thing
we need to reward these. Sorry, I didn't mean to step over. We need to reward actual results. Like we don't always
Oklahoma
have this many.
Too.
Yes,
you have them too.
Yeah. Yes.
Like I don't know what else people were like. Oh, she's an Oklahoma hater.
I think you guys. In the
BCS era, Ari, which I'm sure.
Are we the haters?
We're
the haters.
You're the haters. You guys are the haters because you didn't mention.
Well, I'm inherently biased towards my Longhorns, so that's I'm a huge Oklahoma hater. Yep. Listen, I think I'm public enemy number 1 in the Oklahoma sphere after the column I wrote on Monday.
You're up there. It's you and Lincoln.
And I filed it thinking they were going to love me for it. So maybe I'm just off in banana land somewhere, but I think Oklahoma is awesome. And like I'm looking at your top 10 right now: Washington 1, Oklahoma 2, Georgia 3, Michigan 4. I'm not going to tell you the rest. Paywall. And if you're not subscribed to The Athletic, I don't know what you're doing to yourself. I think this is a good segue to get into the questions. But before we get into those questions, let me formally welcome everybody into the Sunday reaction show in the Until Saturday feed. If you're watching live on YouTube right now, thank you so much. I love the fact that we see a lot of the same names. It makes me feel like there's a community here, and I really like all you guys, even if you don't like me. And I'm truly thankful that you're here with us every time we go live. Leave a 5-star review on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you listen to your podcast if you're listening to this in podcast form. Whether you're a YouTuber or a podcaster, anything that you can do to interact with the show, share it, like it, comment, review it. All those things help the show grow, and it means a ton to all of us. Also, if you want to in the future be included in the Sunday Sound-Off show, feel urged to leave a voicemail at 316-462-9852. Again, that is 316-462-9852. You can leave your thoughts, your feelings, your anger, your notions, anything you want. You can call me an idiot. All those things will make it into the show the best of our ability. You can also text that line, but we will favor the voicemails. So how about it, guys? You want to get into it? I know we have a ton this week. We're getting more every week. That means we're growing. People are starting to appreciate the concept, and I feel like we're humming. We got some good questions. We're getting to the good part of the 4-team playoff field. It's the dessert. Savor it. Enjoy it. There's only 4 spots. There's a lot of teams that are vying for those 4 spots, and we don't know who's going to win the national championship this year, and I think that's delicious. So why don't we get to it?
That's right. All right. This year the playoff is the learner's permit. Next year we get the driver's license and really get things going.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay.
Hi, it's Jason in Independence. I was the first guy you ever played on an Until Sound-Off. I tried to warn you. Washington was the groupthink overhype. Well, about to see it in about 20 minutes. I said what I said, and I'll call you back after and let you know either way how it goes. Bye. Hey, it's Jason in Independence. I was wrong. Much respect. We'll see him in Vegas.
I gotta respect the guy.
I love that
for turning, because he was like, why does the question was phrased the first week. The first question, by the way, we got to send him a medal or something because being the first caller. But I remember the way that it was phrased. It was phrased, Why do reporters or national media or whatever have national groupthink about certain teams? Every year there's a few that people overthink are going to be good at the beginning of the year. Who is it this year and why is it Washington? That's what he said, remember?
I do remember that guy. I think some of that has gone away, though. I don't know how. I think people were skeptical at the case a couple weeks ago when you were looking around and everybody was tripping over their own shoelaces. And we said, hey, there's a pretty good case for Washington number one because they haven't played with their food at all this season in a field where no one's good. I think there was a little bit of skepticism about Washington at that, but I don't know that I would even call Saturday a breakthrough game. I think people were taking Washington seriously. I think there was some eye rolls about Washington as a true national title contender, but I don't know that that was a prevailing thought. Maybe I'm wrong on that.
I think it was maybe just that, like when I was doing preseason CFP picks, and we're doing mid-season ones, by the way, so people are going to adjust.
Yeah,
It's going to be hard this year.
It's going to be really hard, and I picked Washington as my Pac-12 champ because I thought that everyone was going to pick USC.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought I was zagging. And then I think a few of us also picked Washington. So I think it's just possible that like people liked what was returning and whatnot. But I don't think that people I think we're excited about the Pac-12 and the depth in the Pac-12, but not, who's going to be an actual national title contender. Are they the type of team that could actually win it? Like this is still a league that hasn't played in the playoff since the 2016 season. So I think even just picking them to be in the playoff is a little bit of a risky pick in the preseason. So I don't know that there's a ton of groupthink. I think this year we had one of these comments that we just put up there. I mean, there's so much parity. There's been so many flashes of different teams, and a lot of the great teams have had really slow starts, looked bad in wins. Like they just feel that's been one of the prevailing thoughts is like it does feel more wide open, even if the field eventually narrows.
I got to say this too, okay, because we've been watching the sport. All of us have been covering it for more than 10 years now. Washington's remaining schedule is ASU, at Stanford, at USC, home against Utah, on the road against Oregon State, and Washington State in a rivalry game. It is not out of the realm of question that this team, newly ranked number one, could lose 2 games this year. It is the Pac-12. They are not out of the woods yet. There's a lot to still be decided. And, if you're sold on them, you should be, because I think Oregon's really good. Like I tweeted at the end of the game when I thought Oregon was going to win that, it's time to put the word out that Oregon's back up. That meme that everybody tweets out. And it's like, they didn't win the game. I'm absolutely obsessed and in love with Dan Lanning now after the calls that he made at the end of the game. But, they're still got to beat Oregon. That doesn't include if they're blessed enough to make it the Las Vegas game where weird things happen. So I still think that the Pac-12 –
I'll speak for both of us, I think, Ari, in that when you say that, I think that's more a credit to the depth of the Pac-12 than skepticism about Washington.
For sure. Yeah, I'm not there's nobody that I could look at you with the eyes right now with a straight face and say, I'm 100% certain they're going to make it through the Pac-12 without 2 losses. And I hope that doesn't happen. I hope at least one team makes the playoff this year. I hope they don't. I hate this word, cannibalize. I always think of Jeffrey Dahmer. It freaks me out. But I hope they don't knock each other off. So we'll see. We'll see how it goes. It's super exciting. The greatest thing that I will say again is that it was a great game, and we were 2 yards away from a different result. And it certainly could have happened. Oregon could have made a field goal and won in overtime, and we'd be having a different discussion right now. That doesn't mean that Washington wouldn't have been a good team still. And I still feel the same way for Oregon. They could win out and win the Pac-12 as a one-loss team and be a badass playoff contender or potentially game winner. Next question.
Yes.
Hey, Ari, Dave, well, whoever else is there today. This is Ethan. I'm just outside Washington, D.C. It's about 10:42 p.m., and it's in between the third and fourth quarters of the Miami UNC game, and I don't get it. I'm so used to the pain and the suffering of being a Miami Hurricanes fan that I just let myself believe. And then between effing Neil, no Neil, and then this stupid nonsense that's going on right now in this game, we just got outscored 21-0 in the third quarter. I don't get it. Is there any hope for me? And as always, love the show, and do it to it, Lars. All right, bye.
Do it to it, Lars. Oh, look, a deli meat. Whose wonderful candies are these?
Should we should timestamp all the calls, because I do think finding out how far into the evening or
10:42
drunk
p.m.,
someone
yeah.
might be, is
Yeah.
helpful.
Not that Ethan was drunk, but that was the most pleasant voicemail I've ever gotten left after 10:30 p.m. Eastern time.
That's what I'm saying. I'm saying, but like, and we could also, I mean, if people wanted to volunteer what they've been drinking, that would also be helpful. But I like the
Yeah.
timestamp.
Come here,
very
you
intrigued.
devil log. Sorry with the
I
heavyweight
think
references.
I think the one thing, and this isn't necessarily for Miami fans, but I think Miami might be number one on the list of college football jobs and programs that are worse situated than the sort of casual fan realizes. The no on-campus stadium thing is a real thing. Facilities are not great. They don't have a ton of money. Your NIL kingpin is facing some issues at the moment, Mr. John Ruiz. And I think people look at, well, they have all this Miami talent, and you have all these national championships in 2 different eras, right? And I think those things are true, but Miami's a difficult job in a lot of ways. And Mario Cristobal has not helped himself in the last couple of weeks, even though I thought he was a good fit for this job. So I think there is some hope. I think when you look ahead at the future of the ACC and the future of college football and the idea of whether or not Miami will be included on whatever elevation happens as these leagues coalesce into, the AFC and the NFC. Sorry, Ari. I would be a little nervous.
You like that.
I don't, Ari. I don't. I would be a little nervous if I was a Miami
Then
fan.
join me on the dark side.
No, I'm not going to join you on the dark side. I have a lot of issues with realignment. I don't have a lot of issues with the postseason. But we'll see. Where do you guys sort of stand on Miami's future?
I take exception to I guess it's been a long time, since they've been really, really good. But Miami also has had some of the most badass teams in my lifetime in college football history.
2 different eras where you were ruling the sport for a window.
Nicole's dad is a lifelong Jets fan. You want to ask him about what it's like to like a team and be tortured? I don't know if I'm ready to put Miami up there yet, because there's always eternal hope. And when you're that close to players, I think that there's a likelier path that you can overcome it. And just because they're not very good, or the results haven't been good the last 2 weeks this year, you have a person who understands Miami as the head coach, who is clearly upping the ante as it pertains to who they're signing out of high school. You're getting better players in there. I think that there is a clear and direct path where you can draw a line from here to there and say, here's how we're going to get better. There are a lot of programs in college football where you don't have a plan, or it's hard as a third party or an analyst of that sport to come up with that plan. So that doesn't exist for a lot of schools, and it exists for Miami. So you won't hear me feeling too bad for that. That said, it just stinks that it keeps happening to them. That no knee thing is like, we're 8 days removed from it, and I'm still like disgusted by it.
I know it's literally kept me up at night. I just like,
it's so wild to think about that. It's kind of amazing that it was hiding in plain sight all this time, like that nobody has noticed this that much before.
Doesn't it kind of make you want to go look through all these old box scores and just see who's kneeling and who isn't? Like, is there another coach out there that doesn't kneel? If you're a fan of a team, then tell us.
Yeah, let us know. Please let us know. Yes. I want to go back. Here's what I'm going to do after this show, and I'm not even joking. I think I'm going to go back to the FIU box scores in Mario Cristobal's first head coaching job when he got really screwed there at the end. I want to, was he not kneeling all the way back there? I got to look this up. This is driving me crazy now.
So to the original question about like, where is Miami's future? I am with Ari on this. I mean, I think it's too soon to write off Mario Cristobal. I mean, I understand the immediate reaction to something that is beyond inexcusable and being like, oh my God, like, do you fire him on the tarmac, right? Like, whatever the extreme examples of like something like that is for a knee-jerk fan reaction. But like anytime we see a coaching change, it takes time to weed out the players that are not contributing to the type of culture you want or the type of scheme and system that you want. Clearly, he already made an offensive coordinator change last year, like something wasn't working there, personnel issues. And then also like it just is going to take time for a great recruiter. Like we're still seeing even the remnants of Mario's recruiting at Oregon, right? Like, and how he beefed up different position groups in the recruiting area. And so I think that you still need to give him time to do that. I agree with whoever was commenting about, like, I don't think Miami would be left behind if there's, an era of super conferences. I agree that I think Miami would be pretty well positioned here. I mean, there's a lot of money. The academic prestige is there. I agree though with Ubben about the point that, like, this is a smaller school further away from South Beach than people realize if you've not actually been to Coral Gable. So I think it takes a lot of factors, and obviously they've missed on coaches. It is a pressure cooker. It's a really hard place to succeed in and to show that growth. I thought that they had it. I still trust in this offense. I think they can do some really good things this year, but it's frustrating, I imagine, for Hurricane fans when you see something like Duke and when you see North Carolina fixed or vastly improved, even though they gave up a lot of yards to Miami. Their defense, right? It was dead last in the ACC last year. They have shown significant improvement. They've been getting more negative plays, all of those things. But Duke turns it around from a 3-win season to 9 last year. And then you beat Clemson. And then they didn't even have Riley Leonard this weekend. And they crushed NC State. Like, that is a program builder. And that is someone who can walk into tough situations and also not just rely on recruiting, right? That's a coach who, one of the things I like most about Mike Elko is that almost all of his jobs in the course of his career have been places where he's at, like, one of the least talented teams in the conference that he's in. Like, it's just when you see something like that and you look at Duke and Duke has game day there and Duke is winning football games and you're Miami and you're saying, what can we not do? Why can't we get out of our own way? I imagine that's very frustrating, but I agree in general, long-term. I mean, you have to figure out how to get dudes to this school, how to get back to where you want to be. And again, even if, I'm not as sure what the timeline is or whatever about, kind of the future of college sports, but there's no reason that Miami should be contending in the ACC, right? We've been saying that since they split divisions in the first place, hoping that Florida State and Miami would play each other. And then even now without division. So it's frustrating. I understand, but you got to give it a little bit more time. FSU was changing coaches really quickly, and then you had to restart and you had to restart and restart. And then Mike Norvell was able to actually build upon each other and build those building blocks to where they are now.
Nicole,
I want to jump in real quick.
Quick question, Mike Elko tangent.
Yes,
I had a Mike Elko tangent too.
He is the guy that if A&M fans get their fantasy, that he's the guy stepping into that situation. Is that worth $120 million to you, Nicole?
Well, let me jump in before she answers that real quick. And I want to say this because Nicole and I both talked to Elko on the phone last year. Remember, like in the same week.
Oh yeah, we both were working on Duke stories.
Yeah. and then you wrote a Duke story, and then I just never got around to doing mine. But I spoke to him on the phone about this, and when you look at him from a recruiting standpoint and his diverse background, he was a coach at Penn, he was a coach at Hofstra, Richmond, Bowling Green, which is a MAC team that is kind of hard to I don't know why I can't say that word. Differentiate from other MAC schools, and then he also was Notre Dame and A&M. When you think about a person who is kind of, recruit, and he was part of the class that A&M signed in the 22 cycle, the greatest class of all time. So he's recruited at the highest level. He's coached at a Ivy League school. He's coached at a place that has tradition, but academic things you got to jump through at Notre Dame. Like, I don't know if there's been a coach that's been into a more diverse area of different schools that kind of brings that kind of expertise to wherever they go. So Nicole, you can answer his question, but I thought that was a fascinating thing to look at because you don't really see very many coaches that have that type of resume.
No, and that's why it was fascinating to me, just overall his path. But like I actually went to Durham after he got the job that spring because also about taking this job, right? Like, you're one of the best defensive coordinators in the country, and that was the cycle where Brent Venables took a head coaching job. Tony Elliott took a head coach. So you were seeing these like really high profile, well-paid coordinators taking these jobs. And some of them were really hard, and Duke's very hard, right? Like David Cutcliffe did some magic, but it's a tough job. So I think that it's a fascinating question. I don't think that anyone is worth, a 70. What is the figure on the buyout? for Jimbo?
Well, so the Jimbo buyout I think is around 75, and then
Okay, and then his
conservatively,
staff.
I guess you would conservative, then the staff. Conservatively, you'd need 50 million for Elko at a staff. So I put it at like
Yeah.
125
Yeah,
million
I mean,
dollars.
I don't think anything is worth that in this sport. It's just volatile and
Nicole, you're speaking like someone who doesn't have an oil derrick in their backyard. What is this?
well, I would love to have one in this current climate. Yes, but so I don't know the answer to that, but I do think that
Where would you put the
with what
oil
he's-
thing in Chicago?
my building. Well, I guess I would first buy a house, right? That would be the first step. But
Highland Park,
I do
Jordan's
have
home.
I have a really small little like balcony, so like it could start
up there.
there and like
I wouldn't
come
drill
through
on the
with cement.
balcony. I feel like you're not
that'd
going to
be
like what you find beneath that.
I'm limited right now until I buy my new house with all my new oil money, which I will get
Yeah.
there. But so ultimately my point is I do think that he would be an attractive candidate for a variety of jobs because of that diverse background. And I also think that what he's done at Duke and everyone in the coaching industry and ADs and everyone understanding how hard that is from a football standpoint will make him attractive to a lot of people. So I don't know. And I also think it would be ridiculous to pay a buyout to get rid of Jimbo Fisher, despite all of the issues and all of the same
Don't
mistakes and issues that they made.
Don't ever say this podcast doesn't care about small teams. We spent 15 minutes on Mike Elko, Duke's build, and what kind of job candidate he would be. So you're welcome.
True, but so since we are hitting on things that are tied to Nicole, since I'm here, can we at least also shout out Rutgers and how they're going to be bowl eligible in a week?
Yeah,
How big
sure,
is that?
absolutely.
That's huge.
They just like crushed Michigan State's soul yesterday.
Oh, that was incredible.
Greg Schiano soaking wet from the rain, crying tears of happiness on the field. That was quite a sight.
I'm just saying
Rutgers,
they've improved defensively, and they are going to be able. They can get some of these teams in the middle of the pack towards the bottom of the Big Ten that they haven't always been able to get.
All
right, I'm fine. Thanks for letting me tangent here.
That might be the first Rutgers mention on the entirety of until Saturday.
I was going to say, somebody on Saturday morning sent me a text that Rutgers was the play of the day. And I didn't take it. And then the entire game, Michigan State was winning. And I was like, ha, idiot. And then I looked back later and they came back and won. And it was just
Ari, you could have had Rutgers and the Jets in the same weekend and make so much. I would have.
I'd like to know what the live money line was when they were down 24-6 in the fourth.
Yeah,
an opportunity for Ari.
This is a city of dreams, guys. It is. I want to move here, but my wife won't let me.
I don't think
that's the worst possible thing that could happen.
It would be a terrible idea. Absolutely terrible idea.
Buddy, I have the sports book in my pocket everywhere I go. Like it's not like it's the Keno machines in the gas station that would get me, I think.
But doesn't it feel like it would be worse? Oven's with me.
It would be worse,
I feel like it'd be worse.
Way more.
The thing about Vegas is that you can't do anything in your walk of life without walking past gaming machines. Like I could go on a date with my wife in Dallas and not be thinking about gambling. But if we went on a date in Vegas, I'd have to walk through a casino 80% of the time.
So you don't just take Britt up to Cherokee all the time? That's not your move?
She won't go with me, but I go once a week by myself. That's my
This is my favorite Ari fact. It's so insane. It's not that close. It's like an hour and a half.
20 minutes away. An hour and 15 minutes away.
Wait, I'm sorry. How often are you going?
I mean, not as much in the football season, but during the off season, I play poker in Cherokee, Oklahoma once a week. It's my me time.
I listen. Killing me right now.
How did this start? No. How did this begin?
I've been playing poker once a week my entire life, and I tell my wife that that's one of my things I like to do, and she's a supportive and loving partner who lets me go play.
You need to find an underground. You need to find an underground cash game in Dallas.
Yeah, I don't want to.
That's what I was going to say. Like, why? I'm saying, like, why is it so far away? And that this is something that
it's across the state line. Dallas isn't. You can't gamble in Dallas.
There are card rooms in Dallas, but I play for enough money where I wouldn't want to walk into like a parking lot of a Tom Thumb grocery store after I like playing in a casino. I feel more secure that way. And it's like I like the 1 hour drive up by myself, quiet. I listen to a podcast, and on the way back, I listen to murder books on the way home. And
I like that.
come
I
in
support. I'm back in on the idea.
yeah,
I support it.
yeah. I listen to my murder books. There are times where
good.
I'll be like in the middle of nowhere in Oklahoma, driving back from the casino at like 3 a.m, and like they'll be talking about some vile thing in a murder mystery book, and I'll just like think like, what are you doing right now, dude? Like, what are you listening to right now? And then it's like all these disgusting. Okay,
Like,
should we go to the next
like
thing?
I was just gonna say, like, if you were murdered driving on these like random roads in the middle of the night, and they figured out that the last thing you were doing was listening to a murder podcast, that would be very interesting, and that would be the headline.
Well,
of
true crime is.
I just want you to know, Ari, if you are murdered at any point, I will make it into a podcast. Searching.
Yes,
for
yeah.
That's my promise to you.
Anything that I could do.
Sponsored by
Filet. More.
Filet.
And the
Until
Athletic,
Saturday,
finally,
a narrative
they'll sponsor
podcast
that one
on the Athletic. And Ari,
whatever day of the week.
we won't put it behind the paywall. I promise, buddy.
Okay, quick 30-second
Oven.
story.
Hold on.
Quick, I gotta tell you.
No. Wait. I came up with the name already.
Okay.
Before you tell the story, Oven. The podcast would need to be named Until Justice. It's an option of the Until Saturday feed. Okay, all right.
I'd be really weirded out if you
we get the logo, we cross out Saturday, and we put Justice in red underneath.
It's like a little picture of Ari.
When I was covering Ohio State, I was on a road trip with Bill Landis, our former Ohio State beat writer, and Doug LeMaurice, who used to work at the Cleveland Plain Dealer, and we all went together. And it was a road trip to Purdue or Indiana, one of those two. And Friday night, we left late. It was dark, and the highway had an accident on it, okay? And Doug is the type of person who, if there's an accident, there's the people who are like, okay, we waited out, and then there's the people who like zoom in on maps and try to find an alternate like highway or whatever to go on.
Do that. Yeah.
Doug doesn't let it rest. So we get off the highway and we take a right off the highway, and then all of a sudden we're driving in a cornfield. And when I say a cornfield, it's like a one-way road, and it is pitch black. There are no lights. It is a cornfield in rural Indiana. Nobody within miles of us. And I'm driving a Jeep Grand Cherokee, and my arm, the hair on my arm is standing up. And I'm driving, and I'm going 20 miles an hour. And I say it's a rural road. I cannot emphasize that enough. There's no reason why we should have been driving on this thing. We drive, and then all of a sudden, a man, the three of us saw it, peeked his head out of the corn, stared at me in the eyes.
No.
My soul out of my chest. No facial expression. No wave. Nothing. And then turned around and walked back into the crops. If you are listening to this show.
That's definitely a Nebraska fan.
Wait, Oven, write that down. That will be chapter 1 of this podcast.
We do need a special episode where we just all tell our traveling for college football terrible stories. I have a lot.
And I'm not saying that it was a ghost.
Are you sure that they saw it?
They saw it. You can text Bill after this.
I'm going to.
It was, in my life, I have never been more. What the hell was that psychopath doing out there? Like, look at me. I look at him, like, why would I make that up? Like, it is insanity. And like Landis was like, we sped away. The only thing that person could have been doing was dumping a body. There's no other reasonable reason why somebody would be out there.
I mean, he might have been harvesting corn.
It was 11 p.m. and there were no lights. He was not harvesting corn. There were no vehicles around. I don't even know where this person came from. It's terrifying. And if you made that the first scene of any horror movie, they could put it in the theaters, we'll make some money. Okay, this is 40 minutes. We got some more to get to. Yeah, it was scary. It was one of the scariest things I've ever seen in my entire life. Next question.
Hey, this is Mac calling from Los Angeles. I went to USC, fight on. Mostly, I want to talk to you guys about breakfast. I cannot believe that Dave has the reputation for weird food takes when Ari doesn't like waffles. There's so many good sweet breakfast options. It's one of the most special things about breakfast. You can't do it for any other meal. And it blows my mind that that's the normal opinion is that savory breakfast is superior. not as a daily driver. I get it. I eat my eggs and bagel for like regular days, but on a Saturday, watching some cartoons, give me some waffles, pancake, sausage to balance it out, that kind of thing. I don't get it. It's amazing. Dave, I also think you're wrong about specialty pancakes. I love maple syrup, but next time you're in town, it's a place near USC's campus called Jackson Joe, and I think it's kind of like the corn dog thing, where you really haven't had the experience that you need to appreciate specialty pancakes. So check it out. I think you could be swayed on that. My question for you guys: do you guys both really believe that the 4-team and the 12-team are, one of those is the ideal situation? Or do you think that there's an in-between that would be better, or even a greater expanded field?
Okay, I got to start this off. I'm not going to do the playoff thing again, but I like waffles. That's completely inaccurate. I don't like whipped cream and sugar sauce, and I don't want a candied apple for breakfast. Okay, that's the only thing. I don't need the candy part. I like waffles. I like syrup. I like that the waffles have become a bun on some breakfast sandwiches. I'm a big waffle guy, big pancake guy. I just want maple syrup. That's all. And I'm going to keep my answer short and sweet to the actual question, which is I think 6 or 8 would be fine. 12 is too many. I'll be done with that.
All right, real quick, did you prefer the BCS over the 4?
No.
Okay. I'm an 8 person myself. I have some breakfast thoughts I want to bounce off Nicole, but if it was me drawing it up, I would go 8. I would go 5 conference champions, although that gets messy with the Pac-12 situation. But I would go auto bids. I guess you do 4 and 4 now, something like that. So that would be me, and I would have a guaranteed spot for the G5. Sorry, Ari.
Yeah, that's okay. I mean, it's better than 12.
So I also was a big proponent of 8, and that was before kind of like I realized that we were skipping that step. Like I thought it would go to 8 and then it would go to whatever size after that. But I actually really like 12 the more I thought about it, because I think that the idea of having dedicated at-large spots is a good thing. Ari, it's going to get the best teams in. You want them at the end playing for the title. Anyway, we don't need to go into all of that. In general, though, I was 8 and then 16, kind of like without buys. I don't love the idea of having buys. But I see why they did it the way they did. My main thing moving forward, especially once we actually have this play out next year, is the on-campus games are going to be awesome. They're going to be a headache. They're going to be a logistical challenge, but they're going to be awesome. And then we're going to have quarterfinals in bowls, and they should not be in bowls. There should be at least 2 rounds of campus games, and then you ask your fan bases to travel for the semifinals and the finals. I think that's the part that's going to need to be fixed. On the breakfast front, I'm a big savory breakfast person, so going to zig a little bit. I will take an egg dish over the sweets any day. I went to a breakfast place in South Bend this morning called Peggy's. It was delicious, and I got a
sounds delightful.
Yeah, it was great. I think Peggy herself might have been there. There was a rumor going around, so I was like, "Oh, I don't know."
The place you took me in Michigan was perfect. The perfect breakfast that we had.
Benny's is the best.
Yeah.
Benny's in Ann Arbor is just a wonderful place. It's kind of the same. It's definitely family owned, and I got eggs Benedict because eggs Benedict is delicious. But I'm an omelet person. I'll get eggs over medium. And eggs and hash browns, you can't go wrong on it. So
Dave is over here shaking his head. He goes, "How did you not get cookie dough ice cream?"
That's a dessert. It's a little bit too much. It's too sweet. It's too much of a dessert.
Ari somehow has convinced himself in his mind that I am like a birthday cake sprinkles pancake guy, despite the fact that I denied this.
Chocolate Factory, pal.
This is not something that I do. Now, here's the thing. I feel betrayed on a personal level because Nicole has directed me to 2 of the better brunch meals I have eaten in my lifetime. The first one, I can't remember if you were living in New York still or not, but my wife and I went up to New York for the Westminster Dog Show a few years ago. This is right before COVID. Bubby's. I'm telling you, we still talk about the pancakes at Bubby's.
So
it's ridiculous.
Okay, I that's the place I get the pancakes. They are incredible.
Okay.
They have a flight. They have different kinds and stuff. That place, yes, you have to get the pancakes.
If I'm going big breakfast, I gotta combine the sweet and the savory. If I can get a small breakfast sandwich and some sort of maple syrup drenched carb, that's great. And then also the French toast at the place in Chicago I don't remember what the name of it was. It was right by our hotel when we had our
Beatrix?
staff summit. Yes, Beatrix.
Beatrix
That was
is
ridiculous.
phenomenal.
Yeah, we went there. I went there.
Yeah, that place
So
was absurd.
Beatrix is delicious. They changed the menu. Really good for breakfast. I always take people there for breakfast. Really good for lunch. Really good for dinner. And it's all over the city.
I'm just saying I like
But
the
I
pair.
order the savory dishes at these places. But except
I gotta
Bubby's.
get
If you go to
this off
Bubby's,
my chest. I gotta get this off my chest because Tony Yayo asked it. Tony Yayo, what is your breakfast meat of choice? I think that I like sausage the most. I gotta say this. Bacon is the most overrated food
Oh my
on
god.
the face of the planet. It does not need to be in cookies. It does not need to be on pizza. It doesn't need to be on hamburgers. It doesn't need to be in birthday cake. It is a perfectly delicious breakfast
birthday
meat.
cake.
People put it in everything now.
No.
Bacon jam,
will-
bacon marmalade, bacon ass juice.
That is
Like, I
Bacon
don't know what
jam,
it is.
I will have you know on a
Is
burger,
good.
bacon jam or a steak
Yes.
is ridiculously good.
No, I'm just
Yes,
saying
and-
it's overdone.
Bacon,
It's not
bacon,
needed.
and in Brussels sprouts, like the flavors perfect. That's a really
Yes.
good pairing.
No,
It's just
if I'm
in too
doing
many
it, if it's
foods.
part of
It's
a
a breakfast
sandwich, I
food.
want to do sausage. I need something a little more substantial. And bacon quality varies so much that if I'm not making the bacon, I am not going to put that in a sandwich because I don't
I don't
trust
need
it.
bacon on a donut though. I don't need bacon on everything I
That's
eat.
fair. I agree with
It
you on that.
it overpowers the flavor of what you're eating. If you put bacon on your pizza, all you taste is bacon. And I don't think
Sounds
it's the most
great.
heavenly flavor on the face of the earth. I'd rather
It
taste
is, but that's
pepperoni,
all right.
cheese, sauce, and that's it. Okay, we're 46
Here-
minutes into this, guys.
Okay.
Oh, you go
Yeah,
ahead.
well,
go ahead.
I
Nicole.
just had
I
one
want
more
you to say
bacon
this.
thought. I just
Okay,
had one
go
more
ahead.
bacon thought. The best bacon that I've ever had was, so here's another breakfast wreck for people. Cheeky's in Palm Springs, they have a bacon flight. So they have 4 different kinds of bacon and like different things. So they have like a jalapeno bacon thing that is phenomenal. And then they have like a maple glazed one, right? Like all the different things. But yes, typically other than that, I do go sausage. I actually also go chicken sausage if that's an option, because usually
Chicken
a
sausage
lot
is
of good
good.
flavors. Yeah.
Okay, next voicemail. I'm sorry, I don't mean to cut us off, but we got to roll.
Hi guys, this is Dylan in Maryland, but from Texas, and I know it's been a week, but as a Texas fan, I'm just now feeling like I can talk about Texas football after that OU game. Do you all think Texas can run the table, including winning the Big 12 championship, likely against Oklahoma, and make it to the CFP? I think they can, because I don't think this is a Texas team that will drop a random game like previous years. But honestly, I do think they probably will need some help with maybe a few of the Pac-12 teams dropping a game or two, maybe a bad Florida State loss, Ohio State. We'll see. Secondly, have you seen the tear that OU linebacker Danny Stutzman has been on since the game? Now, I'm definitely going to sound salty, which I am, but you've got him in a video on the field after the game wearing the golden hat saying F Texas. Then he gets a horns down tattoo on his leg, which when he looks at it, it'll be horns up, but that's okay. And now he has a shirt for NIL with his picture on the front, and on the back it says, Oklahoma only fears God, Texas fears Oklahoma. What do we think about this?
I got a quick thought on this tattoo. All-time bad tattoo. All-time bad tattoo.
If you play
Because
for
for
Oklahoma
one-
and you beat them, you wouldn't think that there's a significance to that?
No, I will, but he chose poorly. He went with, as I understand it, a traditional Texas Longhorns logo that is upside down on his leg, which, as our caller noted, just looks like the regular logo to him. If you're going to do the Texas pejorative logo, you have to do a literal hands down sign like on your bicep or something, or like on your heart or something. That's what you got to do. The actual Texas logo upside down on your leg is in such an insane choice that I don't even know what you're doing.
So I got to tell you this, Dave. I was just eating or at the sports book with one friend that has a tattoo on his bicep that says "Death is just the beginning," and "beginning" is spelled wrong. And I have another friend that was at the same breakfast sports book who has my name tattooed on his body in 3 different places. So when you think about all-time bad tattoos,
Hold on.
yeah,
He did
That's a
it
whole
3
other
different
podcast,
times.
I feel like.
One was a quote, one's my initials, and one was another thing that he has.
What is your relationship with this friend?
Best friend and how I met my wife.
But I would never tattoo my best friend's initials on my body. Why?
He's got a whole bicep tattoo with all the initials of his closest friends and family, including my wife's initials too, because they're very close. But it is also the friend that has death is just the beginning on his bicep. Also has only God has seen the end of war on the back, and I think those are conflicting because if
it's true.
So I think that if you really think about it, I hope he doesn't listen to the show because I don't want to come down on him, but. He has had a lot of tattoo sessions while not being sober, and it didn't work out in his favor. I like the horns down thing, but I do think it is funny if it looks like horns up. Okay, to get to the question, yes, I think they're going to. I think they will run the table, and I think they can. I think beating the same team twice in the same year is hard.
If they continue this run also of just playing backup quarterbacks, that's a great strategy, I think, by Sark to just make sure that whoever they're playing that week, their starting quarterback is either hurt or sitting out or sick or whatever. And that's a good run. I like that. But no, I think Texas can. I don't know that they will, but I definitely think they can. They're good enough to do it. Yes. And I really want to see the rematch in Arlington for sure.
Yep, I also agree. Can, and don't know if they will, but they can. And I think they would have a very strong playoff case. It's very similar scenario here with Oregon, right? If you get that rematch in the Pac-12 championship game and that's your only loss, you avenge it. I hope we get those two games. So mostly
I think
just
Texas
putting that in the universe.
Destiny.
I
think they.
It's
I don't know.
There's too many moving parts.
There are too many. This year, there's more contenders, but I think in theory, yes, they should be able to.
I would say over 50%, a 12-1 Texas with an Alabama and an Oklahoma win on its resume is over 50% going to get in the playoff, I would say. Also, Ari, do you have any tattoos?
I don't. I've never thought of anything that I'd want on my body.
I don't either, yeah. I'm not anti-tattoo. I just haven't
I'm not either. I think they
look
good.
To.
And the one friend that I told you has the initials and had really, really good work done. Spent thousands and thousands of his tattoos are actually very well done. The thing that I hate is when people skimp on the work and get tattoos and get bad ones that are just done poorly.
Or misspelled.
Or bad art, misspelled, yeah. I don't
gotta hire copy editors if you're a tattoo shop. I've always believed that.
We should be consultants.
If I were ever to get a tattoo, I would hire an artist and then find the most qualified tattoo artist. And if it cost $10,000 instead of $2,000, I would probably figure out a way to pay that because I don't want bad artwork on my body. That's my general tattoo take. But my wife doesn't have any. I don't have any. But I'm not anti-tattoo.
I have a friend who has the state out. He's from Wisconsin. He has the state outline of Wisconsin over his heart. I like that tattoo. That's a pretty good tattoo.
So the state of Wisconsin is his whole identity as a person?
No.
That's what you would put over your heart?
No, it's just a place that means a lot to him. He also grew up in the exact same town where making a murderer happened to continue on murder.
Oh,
so he's familiar with a lot of these families.
Ooh. Would he like to help us with our documentary?
We'll see. If Ari gets murdered, we'll make the call. We'll see.
Okay. Well, I think the state ones are okay. You guys know how hard I go for New Jersey because no one else does.
You have a New Jersey tattoo on your body anywhere?
I do not, but now I'm gonna think about it.
Can we get an hour back tattoo on your bicep with the Sopranos gun as the R?
Jesus, no.
Hey guys, I wanted to make a football point real quick. I'm sorry. I hate to end the grab ass.
How dare you do that?
But Dave, because you said you think it's possible. If I wanted to, because I also wanted to give an ode to the Miami fan, because the Miami fan said he was really upset. I think sometimes in college football we lose sight of the fact that sometimes you just lose to a good team. Good team losing to a good team, not everything is embarrassing. So North Carolina is an undefeated team. Miami lost to a good team. It hurts, but I wouldn't get too wrapped up in that. But let me ask you this, Dave. If Texas wins out the rest of their games and then loses to Oklahoma again in the Big 12 championship, will you consider me right?
Yeah, as long as they don't lose by 20 points, yeah, I would consider.
Because losing, if Oklahoma is just better than them,
Yes.
That means that I was wrong, but it wasn't because Texas nodded off games to bad teams. It's just sometimes you lose to a team that's better than you, and I think it's possible that Oklahoma, not possible, maybe it's probably likely after what we saw that Oklahoma is just better than Texas this year. And if that happens, then that happens.
Yeah.
I will solemnly swear to you, Ari. I will say you are right.
Okay.
If Texas is
Just
only
I was
losses
curious
this
about
season.
that.
Now I reserve the right to retract that if they get put in a terrible bowl game and lose to like Wyoming or something.
No, bowl games don't matter to me if they're not playoff games.
I'm with
and I
you.
guess that's
I'm with
probably why
you.
they're expanding it. But okay, next question.
Hi, my name is Joe, and I'm calling from Venice, Florida. Suppose LSU runs the table, beating Alabama in Tuscaloosa, and then the SEC championship by beating Georgia. And alongside that, you have several undefeated teams and one-loss teams in the Big Ten and the Pac-12. Is it feasible that you have the college football playoff without the SEC champion? Thank you.
Interesting.
I think this is a short answer. The only way is if the SEC champion has more than one loss. I think it's that simple.
Probably.
There's no other
I
analysis
wanna-
needed.
I
And possibly at head-to-head, if you're talking about Florida State.
I haven't looked at a lot of like the advanced number ranking systems, and I forget what the committee uses a lot of. They use a lot of different metrics, but I feel, and the metrics always love the SEC because they have so many strong teams. But in a down year like this, I'm very curious if those metrics are not as high on the SEC, and if that hurts.
I just don't think we've
one
been
loss or
progressive
two
enough
loss.
for the committee to not put them in. Even if we think the SEC is bad, I don't think that we're at that point.
Well, also, we know that the committee can always just backload, put a bunch of SEC teams in that 20 to 25 range, and then it's like, oh wow, look at all of
Yeah,
these
it
top
happens.
25 wins. That does happen.
Love
So,
backloading.
It happens.
Okay, next
but yeah,
question.
I last point. This would be the year that
Yeah.
you don't do that. And
Yeah.
Hi, this is John Skolsky from Aranjuez, Spain. I was watching the Washington-Oregon game and thinking with more and more players coming back for their third or even fourth years and not having to take the chance of being a mid to late round draft pick anymore because of NIL, is the quality of gameplay going to steadily improve simply because rosters are more experienced? And are developmental programs like the Iowas, Wisconsins of this world, are they the big beneficiaries? Because that'd be kind of awesome. All right. Oh, and Ari, the Filet-O-Fish is finally making its way to mainstream McDonald's in Spain, in Madrid anyway. It's €5.05, which is like $5, half the size of the ones back home, and totally worth it, brother.
wow, that's an important update.
What, €5.05? What does that mean? Half American currency, half European?
No, it's like I think the euros use cents.
They use cents? Okay.
Have you been to Europe?
I have a ton.
Me?
I use an American Express card.
Okay. No, I'm asking Ari. I'm like, have you used other currency before in your life?
Yes, I've used shekels in Israel.
Okay.
I've been on a lot of Mediterranean cruises, so I've been to Greece and
That doesn't surprise
France
me.
and
You give off strong Mediterranean cruise vibes.
oh yeah,
Mhm.
yeah. Tarp off, Star of David flowing in the chest hair. I got the whole thing going. But I've been overseas quite a bit. Lucky enough to be blessed enough to experience those beautiful places. But I don't remember. I'm not a currency expert. I just pay with credit card everywhere I go.
I think that his question, I think it actually will, because you'll have more good players sticking around, more experienced players, slightly less. Well, I'd say slightly less. I mean, I think a not insignificant amount of fewer players turning over every season, because for a long time it was, you don't want to risk your body for free, and you don't have to do that anymore, especially if you're a star with iffy NFL futures. I don't think that it will impact places like the developmental programs, because I still think you're going to run into the issue of players being poached. And unless you have players becoming employees and having the free transfer and the tampering that's going on across the sport reeled in a little bit, if you're a great player at a second tier, as we would call it, developmental program, you're going to get poached by one of the big places, whether you're, Jahmyr Gibbs or whoever, that's still going to be an issue. So I don't think that the developmental programs will benefit, but I do think the sport as a whole will. And we've kind of seen that this year with the amount of star power that you had coming back. I mean, the Pac-12 is enjoying a lot of that. And I think we're going to see more of that in the sport because it becomes more attractive to stay. And you're not giving up, like, especially if you're a big star, you can make close to a rookie deal in NIL, especially if you've made a bunch of hay. You're in a big program that has a deep pocketed collective.
So I have a couple different thoughts on this. I do think that it's great when athletes decide to come back. I've been saying that for a while, and I think we've seen it in college basketball for some of these bigs that aren't really valued in the NBA and wouldn't be drafted. But I think that the question overall, some of the things we're seeing this year, something that I was actually just writing about and texting you guys about, is you do still have these super seniors with COVID eligibility. So some of the quarterbacks that we're talking about have really been experienced, and they have also lived through this period of time where they got an extra year of eligibility for COVID. The transfer portal started to explode, or started, actually, if you think about when some of them started in their college careers, like Sam Hartman. And then also you had NIL, and we're still in the early stages of it, right? And so that could continue to change, or athletes eventually become employees, and that model works a little bit differently as well. You'd still have endorsement deals for the biggest of stars, but it's a little different than the way like collectives work now. So I think it's still a little bit TBD. I do think for the mid and late round guys, which is really what the question's about, that's where you could see that. But if for some of the other guys, I mean, would you really want to risk 1 year of your sorry, dying?
Bless you. Or excuse you. I don't know.
Cough. My point is, I don't think you would want to risk 1 year of you at your athletic peak, at your prime of your career, to not be playing the NFL for some of the really high end guys. So I just think that it's going to depend on the situation. And also, again, like in the years to come, when you don't have the super seniors with COVID eligibility, and then you also have maybe a different business model, it could look different. So in general, yes, I agree, but I also think that this is going to continue to evolve.
I think also if you're in a place that doesn't have a ton of recruiting, just rich soil, like a Wisconsin, like an Iowa, something like that, and you have a collective, I might use that collective a little bit differently, knowing that I'm not going to be able to go down to Atlanta or go into the middle of Ohio and get their best players. But if I have guys, I want to say our collective exists to make sure that we don't get poached, that we don't get outbid for a guy. We're going to keep our guys. And I wonder if that is a more effective strategy for some of the middle programs that no matter how deep
to come back.
your NIL pocket.
Right.
Yeah.
Retention.
But how deep your pockets are, you're always going to have trouble getting the 5-star offensive tackle, but you might develop one. And maybe instead of JJ Watt, signing up to go play for, Ohio State or Alabama for a year, you keep him.
Okay, guys, we're an hour and 3 minutes in. We've got one more voicemail. Let's get to it.
Let's do it.
Hey, gentlemen. Hadley from Pacifica. I've been meaning to call in for a while now to bitch about all my bad beats with all my gambling, but that's for another time. Now, not even as a USC fan, I'm watching the end of the USC Notre Dame game and seeing a Notre Dame team that got their ass whooped by Louisville last week and had a tough stretch, including the game against Ohio State, but really came out here and crushed USC, albeit at home. This really seems like a bit of an indictment on Lincoln Riley. I know his record was 17-3 coming into this game at USC, but this is a bad loss. And as you guys have noted before on your pods, they're not recruiting modern day or California very well. It doesn't bode well for Lincoln Riley, and there has to be a bigger story there that I hope you guys will cover as to exactly why, whether the coaches aren't going out in the high schools there in California, whether they're not connecting, whether the SEC schools are doing better. In any event, thanks and keep up the great work, fellas.
Well, I promise you we're going to have a modern day story eventually. So I don't know when that's coming. I know Antonio Morales is working on it. I'm going to help him if he needs my help. It's something I'm very curious about. But yes, I think it was a tough loss because it made you swallow the realization that they're just not a very good football team. They're not a well-rounded football team. They don't have the lines to compete. They don't have the defensive players to compete at the level that we're expecting them to compete at. Maybe that's our fault. Maybe it's our fault for putting USC in that category. Maybe it's our fault for expecting them to make the playoff. I have $1,000, debt to Andy Staples now as a result of my thought process of how quickly that would take, and it's not taking very long, or it's taking longer than I thought it would, and they're not recruiting to the level that I would have expected. So when you go see them get hammered by a team like Notre Dame, which also doesn't have a ton of top line talent because their offensive line can't block anybody, and then you see the 2 top 100 players, one of which is a 5-star prospect, one of whom, sorry, I'm learning grammar with my editor, Mitch, is a 5-star prospect who's going to Texas, and one's going to Auburn, I believe. It's like, I don't even see how they're addressing the issue. Now, it's a portal, but I thought they were going to own California in like a dominant way, and they're just not.
Mm-hmm. I don't have a good explanation for why, but I agree that it's a huge concern that you're not. And I think it gets muddled now too, Ari, because I think if you're Ohio State, if you're Penn State, if you're a lot of these schools, I think you have a hand in California now. And I thought they were going to rule the Pac-12 a lot like you did, Ari. I thought he'd go out there and do the same thing in the Pac-12 that he did in the Big 12, win the league more than half of the years he's in it, and have a roster that might not stack up with Alabama or Georgia, but would dominate the Pac-12, and then see how it goes in the playoff, and maybe get a couple pieces that allow you to compete and have an offense that can't be stopped. And right now, he has a really good quarterback and a bunch of really good receivers. And you look at the other rest of the team and you say, I don't see a lot else I love on that squad.
I mean, it is fun to watch Caleb Williams scramble and make something out of nothing. It is also not a super reliable way to win a lot of good football games and to not lose
against
games.
good teams.
Against good teams. Also, that game against Notre Dame, and I'm not just saying this because the weather was what it was, but like that's the kind of game they're going to be playing a lot of games like that in the Big Ten.
Yeah, we've wondered that. I don't know how much of a factor that is, but
it's like
it has
playing
to be in the back of your mind.
But how doesn't it make you think? How does USC match up with Iowa?
Right. First of all, that would be a
I'd like to watch
fascinating.
that game.
I would absolutely love to watch that game. It's like two
Would that be a
Sickos
game, or would that be
it
like
would
the
be
number one card on pay-per-view?
Oh, absolutely Sickos game. But that, so like, it would be like playing Utah every week, right? Like the physicality, the focus, the way that like Kyle Whittingham builds these teams. Like
it's like Conor McGregor versus Mayweather.
I just don't understand how Lincoln Riley has not changed the way that he's done this. If you had all these great quarterbacks at Oklahoma and couldn't win a playoff game because your defense was so bad, why do you not change that? Why do you then hire that guy and bring him with you? And then
I don't know how much of it is messaging, but last night you hear him say, we're close. We just got to do a few things better. And like, that's not what I see when I look at them. And on Ari, you forget, Ari, we were hitting not the panic button, but we were raising a ton of red flags in week 0 after the San Jose State game. And we said, they can't
gave
block
up big
San Jose State.
But they were
and the big plays.
People, David. They rotated everybody.
Yeah.
Yeah, they got
sacks
sacks this year. Remember last year was all the turnovers, and we're like, okay, well, they're going to stop getting all these takeaways. Before we go, because I know we're getting close to wrapping up, just received a text back from Bill Landis. So perfectly timed.
Okay.
Circling back on the story. Dollar B. Okay.
Yeah.
He says, I don't know if it was a ghost, but we were definitely driving through a very rural area where there shouldn't have been any people. It was dark and rainy, and someone or something did emerge from the corn as we drove past, and it scared the shit out of us.
Yeah, it was a man. He looked me in the eyes. I made eye contact with the guy. It was a psychopath, and I looked him in the eyes.
Oh, that's what it sounds like. Another doc.
I don't know. It was a guy in overalls with, I don't know if there was blood on his hands or what, but like there's something going on.
You're just adding details.
No, there was no blood. There was no blood. It was this though, Nicole. Seriously, look at me. I was driving very slowly. Have you seen the movie Fargo, guys? Have you seen it?
Yeah.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
You know the scene in the beginning of the movie where the incident with the cop happens and that chubby guy was driving the station wagon and like saw saw what was happening and made eye contact with the killer, and it was like this.
Mm-hmm.
And like they locked eyes, then he got in the car and then chased him. That's exactly what happened, except he emerged back into the cornfield.
What a great call, JY in the chat. It was Purdue Pete. That would be the most
Pryor
terrifying.
Terrifying.
That or the Providence Pryor would be the most terrifying thing to pop out of a cornfield.
Yeah.
100%.
All right. Well, we didn't get to written messages this week. We will save them in the bank for next week. We just went really long. We had some good grab ass. We had some good football discussion. I wanted to thank everybody so much for leaving those voicemails. They warm my heart every week. I'm so excited and thankful that I get to do this. Thank you so much for your continued support of Until Saturday and the entire feed. If you love Nicole as much as I do, you can get Power Hour on Tuesdays, right?
Wednesday. It usually goes up on Wednesdays.
Just so you know, I can't figure out which is the recording schedule and which one is the
the recording
schedule.
date and the post date.
We record
date.
We record on Tuesdays.
Tuesday
It
nights.
publishes on Wednesday. Yes.
Either way, Power Hour is a great show with Chris Vanini. You got to listen to it. Honestly, I feel like this podcast is going in a great direction. Dave, thank you so much for putting up with me, and I'm really happy to figure out that you're the freak of the show. And rate, review, subscribe, share. You know the deal. You know the drill. We will catch you guys next week. Until then, for Dave Ubben, Nicole Auerbach, I am Ari Wasserman. Stay out of the cornfields.
Ari, I'm going to tattoo your